The word of the day today is preemption. I'm not talking about preemptive strikes like with Soleimani or preemptive buying on the Wall Street or stock market. What I'm talking about is kind of what we talk about when we think of The Simpsons predicting the future. What I'm thinking of is when the media will show you something to prime you, to prime the public, to accept it when it comes out. And it showed us a little bit in Out of Shadows rather. Don't want to get it confused with the media or the movie. The documentary, Out of Shadows, that shows a lot of different things, one of which being mass media manipulation, where they'll show the general public a bunch of different scientific advancements and futuristic ideas that we then hope to come to reality, hope to come to life, and a lot of people will put their life's work into making that a reality. And so a lot of people think that this is just coincidence. This is media signaling, and then we kind of put these things out into being because we see them. If you think about the people that are most influential today in society, they would have grown up seeing a lot of the things we're about to see. So I found this interesting article from space.com. It is 11 things that you saw in sci-fi that are now a reality. And it goes over the cell phone. From Star Trek, obviously they use the communicators. You have the replicator that we'd love to see as well. You have a universal translator. We know that we can do that today. We have live apps that translate. Teleportation, I know people might get on me about, but we're doing that right now with photons. Photons are just little balls of energy. So if we're able to teleport a photon, we're that much closer to teleporting something bigger. And I know when people cloned Dolly, the lamb or the sheep, everyone thought that that's going to jump to humans, and I would think that teleporting a photon would be something similar to being able to teleport something bigger. So anyways, that's just my take on that. But there are bigger things. They gave us the Tupac concert in Star Wars, if you remember that. Also limbs, prosthetics, intelligent RFID limbs that could otherwise really truly replace real limbs. And then the digital billboards that you saw in Blade Runner. You have a lot of different advancements all throughout these movies that are not necessarily just really creative, fun, futuristic outlooks. I mean, a lot of these things, people know that these directors were in touch with CIA and FBI. People have dark money coming to them for these movie sets. Kubrick as a huge example of someone who's been rumored to have been in what the deep state, obviously driverless cars being what we see now with Tesla and other AI. So that was just my little slideshow of the different examples of what I think of when I think of media preemption, and space.com put a nice little article together. So now if I kind of change gears from media preemption to the news media preemption, what am I thinking of when we're talking about 5G and the chips and vaccines? I kind of did a little bit of a quick Google search, and it was really easy to find because all of these different sources that we're going to look at, all of them are touting this big leftist agenda, so they make themselves really easy to find. The first is from The Independent, and this is from 2008. We're talking about how can you make a population agree to chip their own kind? How can we agree? How can we get everybody on board with this? Well, you start with the lowest common denominator. You start with the less human, the others, the subhuman. You start with the people who are the pedophiles and the rapists. You start with the really terrible, degraded criminals, the people who are seen as subhuman in culture. And you let us, as a population, decide, yeah, you know what, it's good enough, we can chip those people. We would chip cattle, we would chip our dogs and cats, we'd chip animals like livestock. But yeah, for these criminals, we can treat them subhuman. Let's go ahead and chip them. So we get them on board. We get the population on board with this idea. We start to boil the frog in 2008. We're talking about chips. And most people didn't have great tech in 2008. You think about the election of Barack Obama and how long ago that really was, 2008. A lot of people didn't have the technology to be thinking about RFID chips. But high society, high technology, high elites, they were thinking of this, and they're thinking of how can we put this to use in humans? So obviously they're going to do it to your dogs and cats first, make sure that it's safe, do it to cattle, do it to pigs, make sure that it's safe, and then they'll move on to us. And so you have this article discussing how they're talking about at the highest ranks for the deepest and darkest criminals, these people are going to be chipped, and they're talking about the possibility of it in 2008. Now, at the same time, in 2008, from the Mesa State College. You have this article written up. I think it's a scientific journal report where they go over in pretty good detail this entire idea of human implantation of microchips. So they talk about the RFID use. They talk about how it can be a reader, how it can be used as they can build in a kill switch so they can turn it on and off. It can be used to pick up bio information. So it talks about the healthcare applications, which is really interesting. If you read this, you can pause this and read. I hope you do. This talks about how hospitals use RFID in the wristbands and how if they were just in people, it'd be a lot faster. We could serve more people. How you can administer pharmaceuticals through the chip, that people can come in like a feeder and get medication based on what their chip allows them to receive or not. It would be automated. And that would need a 5G network, by the way. So pause your thoughts on 5G because we're just talking about the RFID chips right now. They're talking about added benefits of the chips. And at the very bottom here, or I guess it's not the very bottom, but just below the picture, we're talking about how prosthetics can be controlled with these chips because they use these chips, they plant them, and then you have a prosthetic that reads what the chip is saying in your limb, and it reads as if there was a neural connection there. That's not what this is, but they're trying to replicate that, and the concern would be that that connection could be hacked. And for as many different chips as you would need, those can all be hacked. And so I was reading an article earlier in the video script at the bottom. The guy was describing how you should not put anything important in these chips, but they want everyone to have one and to have all of your medical and personal information on it, which is all of the important information you would think. So if they're easily hacked, you shouldn't have personal information on it, and that's all they'd be used for. Why would we have them? Anyways, it goes on to the legal implications. The same paper from 2008. The legal implications of, can you give these to people? Can you compel people to have them? Can they be mandatory? The conclusion, a number of them, there are a few. The last one scares me the most though, allows tracking of individuals. So you can collect mass data, watch people move in real time as they go, if you have a network strong enough and fast enough to do that. So are we building any networks that are fast enough and strong enough to report in real time? Anyways, so that was from 2008 from a university, or actually a state college, Mesa State College, reporting on implantable RFID chips in humans, saying it needs a little bit more study, but here's what we find, it's pretty interesting. Now, there are more examples of media preemption as to pushing the chip agenda. Will you get a microchip? It's always a question in the headline to be grabby, and it's always one of the fun, colorful, frilly sites. So I have a couple examples up. The USA Today says you will absolutely get a chip. It's just a matter of time, and they show the size of it. It's a tiny little rice. It's smaller than a rice. It's really, really small. You've got really no state powers cracking down on this. You've got 7 states, I think so far, who have actually said, we're not going to allow companies to compel you to do this. Why would you want to get this chip if it only allows you to use the vending machines that your company owns or to get in the building? Can they give you a card that has the same thing? If your smartphone can have an RFID reader, can your smartphone not also just be the RFID source? Is there not a reason that we have or is the reason that we haven't come up with the technology in the phone itself to do this? And if it does exist and I'm being stupid, then why aren't we just using that? Why do we have to have it implanted? But there are tons of examples. They always ask the question, are we ready for it? Would you like a chip? Do you want to have a party where you get t-shirts made for your chip party? And you can say, I just got chipped, and you can have the tattoo artist come over and tattoo the chip into your skin. Quantum dot die here, and it's not just going after the people that pay attention in tech. I mean, they're advertising chips, Preemption. They're advertising these chips for years to women and children, as well as the general population. But men don't watch and look at and read Allure magazine. But here's a headline from them in 2018. Human microchipping is here, and it's about to rock your skin's world. It's going to make your skin better. It's going to improve your skin's health. That's what we're telling people about chips. PBS. We're going to give you a little sponsored propaganda here about it's going to be really impressive in the future. But The risk is, and if you read into this at all, you can find this PBS, it's still up. The risk that they say in this headline that's really proposing is that you will lose your liberty in doing this, because someone will be able to see where you are, someone will be able to see your body temperature, your movement, regulate kind of certain things that your chip will read about your body and how you're acting and how you're moving and all these different things, your metabolisms, your blood pressure, your sugar, because of course it's going to help you treat your diabetes. It's going to give you a little notification on your phone and say, hey, you better take your insulin, and all these different things that this is going to help you with on the 5G network, these chips. So the promise, the compromise rather, that it's really posing, is that you're going to give up your freedom for the soft convenience, the tiny little convenience that this actually gives you. This is from a Christian perspective. The CBN News, why implanted microchips in humans could go mainstream sooner rather than later. So this is everywhere, folks. It's not just in mainstream publications. All of the news sources for the last couple of years have done some kind of write-up on, are humans getting microchipped? What do the experts say? Should we be doing this? What do the engineering students have involved with this? Because it's not just that we're pushing this from the top down, no one would buy it. It's that people from the universities, people at the grassroots, they think that they're in on some cool new technology that hasn't been developed for 10 years, or 12 years, or 15 years, or 30 years. They think this is cutting edge, this is brand new, and I want to be in on it. So they're 30 years down a pipeline of signing up to be cattle because they don't know any better. And that's what this is. I mean, they're talking about how we do pacemakers regularly. We do wisdom teeth regularly. We do all kinds of removals and artificial joints, and we'll pop this out, we'll put this in. We do this all the time. It should be no problem to do this for most people. And there was an article around here that says it costs like $180 to get this done. So this is not something that would be really a huge undertaking. If you can imagine a ton of people just getting paid $1,200 once in a stimulus, imagine $180 for the government to slap you with something that they can really use. That cash is gone to them, but this chip they can use. Here, woman, did you just get engaged? Let me see your hand. No, I just got chipped. I was at a chip party, because thousands of people in Sweden have already done this. They've been doing it for years. They've been getting chipped because they want to be able to use the convenience of accessing their door, of opening their phone, of getting in their car. All things you can do without being just a lazy slob. All things you can do if you just have keys. All things you can do without being tracked by the government. So I give you this. If you want a chip, if you want to be tracked, you don't even have to go out for food anymore. I have the solution for you. I have a couple of them because I have a couple of cats. You might be able to hear one now eating. These things are great for you. I'll add your RFID code to the feeder. You can come over anytime and have a snack on me. I'm not getting a chip. What do you think?